What is going on, guys? My name is Alex, or I was going to say my old intro. It's AP112, and welcome back to another episode of Sit Down with Alex. And we have a good one for you today. Um, so, yes, I did read my Bible this week. I read the story of Abraham and his two sons, and then I read Jacob, and Jacob and Esau, and stuff like that. And yeah. I got a bunch of stuff in today's topic. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. First, I just want to say that thank you guys for taking your time out of the day to watch these type of podcasts down with me, my journey and stuff like that. So today is going to be kind of exciting because I'm going to share a personal story that kind of goes with this. And I never talked about this. I never in a million years thought I would be talking about this type of story out in the internet, but yeah, I think it's just something that, it kind of goes with it. So we're definitely going to do that. So yeah, we're going to be talking about trusting in God's plan. That's what I have for today. The big one here is forgiveness. To kind of go into the story that I have, I'm going to share. It kind of puts two and two together, but trusting in God's plan, forgiveness. And then we're going to be talking about falling for temptation here as just for the final thing, because I do want to talk about some stuff like that, as well. But yeah, so going into the scripture or the Bible that I have here, going into Abraham's story about trusting, and this goes for trusting God's plan, it's really interesting because when reading this, it just shows that God is talking to Abraham, and at one point, God tells him to take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and offer him to me as a sacrifice. Now, when I read this, I was like, "Hold your horses! This is crazy." God asking for a sacrifice. And I think that this was kind of like, I was like, oh, this kind of put me on edge here. Obviously, this is not the real scripture. It's just a comic book style. I don't know the full detail, like an actual Bible will tell me, like the full, you know, detail to detail. But, you know, obviously Abraham was just confused. He still obeyed. He didn't question God's plan. He was like, it hurt, but he went forward with it. And this is right here. Abraham couldn't hide his pain, yet he moved forward, obeying a God he couldn't fully understand. And then, Isaac, innocent and trusting, did not fight back. So as he was going to raise his knife to sacrifice his son, God's voice went, thunderous as it is. It says, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God. You will not withhold your son, your only son, from me." So, in a way, it's just kind of saying that God will, and throughout the whole thing, he just kept saying, the Lord will provide. And I think that's what the message is for that story, is trusting into God's plan. Because if you trust into God's plan, the Lord will provide. And I think that I kind of find that very fascinating, because it's like, the way I took it is, Abraham had a son that he loved, and God said, "You love your son, but you have to love me as well. Sacrifice your son, you know." And obviously Abraham was very, I guess, wanted to say reluctant, but he didn't understand, but he still went forward. Why? Because he trusted him. He trusted God. He understood. He even though it hurt him a lot, he trusted him in believing that the Lord will provide. In the end, he's going to provide. No matter what you've lost, no matter what you've gained, lost, or, any pain that you feel, don't worry. The Lord is going to provide. And I feel like that resonates with me a lot, because in a way, we don't really understand. We don't understand, I guess, now. Once, I feel like now it's like once we get a little scared, or once we hit one little roadblock, that's it. We just stop, believing. Our faith kind of diminishes in a way, because just because we hit a roadblock doesn't mean that we have to stop believing. And I feel like I find that kind of common nowadays, and that kind of goes for everything, It's like, I don't want to say like this generation's gone soft, but you know, how can you expect good things to happen, you know, because in order for good things to happen, you have to go through a bunch of other horrible things to get to where you want to be. You know, it's kind of like, how do you want to be good at a sport just like that? You know, you got to practice. You got to put your blood, sweat, and tears into this. You got to hustle. You got to put in the work for you to be good. And I feel like, I don't want to say it's kind of the same, but if, just trust the process, basically. Trust the process, do the work, and watch watch the end result. And that's what God is, I guess, in that passage is what I'm understanding is, listen, just trust into God's plan. All right. Don't let nobody trying to take your focus away from that. Just fully trust in it. And yes, you're going to have a lot of roadblocks. And yes, you're going to go through a lot of obstacles in your life, and you're going to be tested a lot of times. But if you don't give up on him, then he won't give up on you. And in the end, that, even though there's going to be something that's like, dude, this is too much. Just like how Abraham thought it was too much, like sacrificing my only son, or the son that I love the most. And for you, hopefully that's not the case for you, but it could be something really gruesome of like, man, do I really want to I have to let this person go? I love them so much, but I had to let them go, or stuff like that. Trust in it. It could be a test as well, but always trust in it. Maybe that person wasn't good for you, or maybe it could be something else. The only thing I could think of right now is like, was that example. Sorry. But, if you trust into God's plan, the Lord will provide. And in the end, he will. And I feel like that's what we have to like understand here, or I mean, me fully. I mean, because sometimes I do get trouble into trusting into God's plan. There's a lot of stuff that I go through, but or even that I've gone through where my faith has really been tested. But I feel like in the end, I've always kind of held it tight towards like, things happen for a reason. Things will get better in the end. You just got to keep being a good person and keep moving forward and keep holding up my head high, trusting in whatever he has in store for me. And as of right now, I'm doing okay. No tests or whatever, which is great. but yeah, so that's just one thing that I have, for today. And then the story that I want to tell, I feel like it is a part of God's trusting into God's plan, but we also have to get through forgiveness first. And yeah, right after Isaac and Ishmael, obviously, they both grew up and stuff like that. So we get into the thing called Isaac and Rebecca when they have their own family, and then they get to have two sons as well, which is Esau and Jacob. And basically, this story was telling me how, to keep it simple, Esau was the firstborn and Jacob was the second. But something along the line, I don't really understand it. It was over a bowl of stew. This is what it's telling me, a bowl of stew, that Jacob wanted Esau's blessing for his birthright, because when Isaac was old, because it says here Isaac was old and could not see, he planned to give his final blessing to Esau, the firstborn, because that's how it was back in the day. But Jacob wanted it instead, so he ended up doing that, and because of that, Esau was very angry at him, to the point where he wanted to kill his own brother. It says here, even though Jacob's actions were wrong, his heart was not full of evil. He believed in God, and he knew that he made a mistake. Now the cause was living far from his family. God saw everything Jacob had done, but he didn't turn away from him, which is just like God, And then it goes to here to tell me an actual verse, which is cool. And it says, Genesis 28:15, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Again, trusting into God's plan. Things happen for a reason. Just trust it. So, yeah, it was really cool to see that. And then over time, he goes to this journey alone, goes to a different city, but doesn't forget where home is. And he's afraid. He prays, saying that he's afraid to go back home because of his brother. His brother wants to. The last thing he heard about his brother was his brother wanted to murder him. But after years of guilt, Jacob met face to face with Jacob met Esau, his older brother, face to face. But instead of revenge, Esau ran to him and forgave him, and the two brothers wept, and peace was restored. Forgiveness, am I right? And now this brings me to the other thing I wanted to talk about: forgiveness. And this right here is why, like, I like reading stories like this. It's like you trust into God's plan, and you also have to forgive the people as well. So this resonated a lot with me because forgiving is a big part of my life. And I don't know where I got it from. I try to remember before I started recording and the thing. I try to remember, like, why am I like this? Why am I such a forgiving person? You know, who taught me how to be this way? I never really understood why I was like that. The only thing I could remember is that I remember hearing something that I don't know if it's in the Bible or anything, but I don't know who told me this, but they were like, did you know that if somebody were to strike Jesus, he will offer them the other cheek to strike that one as well, just to show them, like, dude, like, he didn't want problems, or he was just a pure-hearted person and stuff like that. And hearing that kind of surprises me. At the time, I'm like, that's cap, because who wants to get smacked, you know? But kind of knowing more, growing up and then knowing more about Jesus, he was just a pure-hearted person, and he couldn't hate anybody. He couldn't hold grudges on anybody. So I do believe it. You know, give the other cheek to slap as well. Hurt me again. It's okay. I still love you for who you are, and I forgive you. And then it takes me back to, like, him just dying on the cross for us, forgiving us, right? And then before he died, he was like, you know, forgive them, Father, for they not know what they do. Like, wow, dude, you are like, this guy was in excruciating pain, dying on the cross for us, and he still looked at all of us and that's just forgave us. And that's just the amount of love that you feel from that is crazy, and there's no other love that could top that. So I think that's the reason why, like, you know, I'm like that, because, you know, it's just what do I gain to be in the same spot of hatred and just, like, you know, of just negative energy, when I could forgive somebody and move on with my life and continue my path with God, and then I go and do whatever God wants me to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm progressing. I don't want to stay in the same place. I don't want to stay in the same little place of hatred and negative and just grudging and just whatever. No, I want to grow from that and kind of move forward. And I think that's why I'm just a forgiving person. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said before, people have always told me you're way too nice for the people who you know, like, the people you hang out with or whatever. Like, they treat you horrible, they talk to you so bad and stuff. Why do you let that happen and stuff like that? And I just don't get it. I don't really know. Truly, you know, I'm a very quiet. I don't want to say I'm a very quiet person, because, like, when I'm around people I know and stuff, like, I say jokes here and there and stuff like that. I do make jokes about other people, blah blah blah. But, you know, I don't act on just hatred or towards, you know, talking bad about somebody. No, it's more of like it's more of a forgiving aspect, you know. And people say that I'm way too nice, but I'm not. It's just the way I think about it is, like, we're all living this life together once for the first time ever. Why would I, you know, put somebody down just because they did me wrong? You know, why would I just, you know, not talk to somebody just because they did me wrong or stuff like that? We're human. We make mistakes. You know, we're not perfect. You know, we're literally just trying to figure out this life together. We're going to make mistakes along the way. We're not perfect. We're not like Jesus, who was the perfect human being. You know what I'm saying? Like, we make mistakes. So why would I hold anybody accountable for something when I'm not perfect myself and I make mistakes and hurt other people as well? So I think that's why I just forgive a lot. And a perfect story is about a past relationship that I had with a girl, and also and how it affected a friendship that I have with one of my closest friends that I have. And we're still close to this day, and you'll figure out why. Going back a couple years, I dated this girl. We dated for about 2 years, and it was going great. I thought this was going to be the last relationship I ever had. I thought this girl was going to be my wife, and I was going to have a family and stuff like that. All right. Um, but around the last year or whatever, I think like, yeah, like going to the third year or whatever, I got betrayed really bad. That happened. Then moving forward, I found out that my closest friends that I had knew about the situation, but they didn't tell me, and it kind of brought my world upside down. And now I'm in I'm in like a spiral moment of like, dude, this is crazy. I thought this only happened in the movies. I thought I was in a TV show. I thought I was in an episode of Euphoria. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, it was so twisted and messed up. I was so angry and I was so disappointed. I was so hurt, and I had a lot of emotions, a lot of bad emotions. And because of that, right, during the breakup, I want to say I really focused on myself, right? Focused on myself. I kind of lost a lot of weight. I was running 6 miles every day in the blazing heat in the summer with a sauna suit. I was focusing on myself, and honestly, I was getting closer to God. And then when I found out the extra stuff about, what really happened and how my friend knew about it and didn't tell me, that's when I think the hatred of in me, I was like, or like, that's when my faith again got tested, and that's when my forgiving aspect got tested, and it got tested to full effect here. I started drinking a lot and stuff like that, and then that's what led me kind of crash into a wall of like, just hatred. At the time, yes, I did hate both of these people. And I do not like saying that because I can never hate anybody. There's one thing about me. I could not like somebody, but I'm most not going to judge a book by its cover as well. But at right then and point, I had a girl who I thought was going to be my everything betray me. My friend who I thought was really close to me betray me and stuff like that. So obviously, as a human being, I'm gonna have hatred towards them. But that doesn't justify, But yes, so time goes by. I'm drinking. I cut them off. Whatever. I disconnect myself from the world, and we're going back into trusting God's plan. And because I did trust God's plan, yes, I was drinking almost every day. Yes, I was doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was hurt. I was really hurt. And now we're going to go into what I also wanted to talk about was temptation. The temptation won badly. Like, knocked me out. I was drinking almost every day. I didn't want to listen to what anybody else wanted to say. I just wanted to just do me. The only time I ever felt peace is when I was running the 6 miles. Now, every time I would run, I would sit down in this same little concrete thing, and it would always be the sunset, and it would just look so beautiful. And that's when I felt peace. And every time I would always think about my faith, God. I would talk to him and I'll be like, why am I going through this? What's going on here? Why am I doing this? I want to change. I want to stop feeling alone. I want to really not feel this way anymore. And I just kept running every day, kept doing what I had to do. But temptation still won because, yes, I did feel free and at ease when I was running and I was, looking at the sunset. But the devil won because I started drinking. And when I started drinking, I felt happy. I started forgetting about what I felt and started having more fun, and then started going out and started going to clubs and meeting other people and stuff like that. That was broken. Very broken. And then temptation just kept winning and winning and winning over time. And then it happened where I didn't talk to these guys it's been a couple months now, and in between those times, I was still very hurt. It was still hard to think about, but at the same time, I was a little. It was better than before, and I started realizing, I'm happy that I didn't, in a way, like I'm happy that I didn't blow it into something that was bigger than it already was. I was happy that I didn't, you know, fight, my friend, or I didn't, like press him or whatever. Like I'm happy that I didn't go to my ex-girlfriend at the time and just like, you know, you know, throw blasphemy in her name and just call her these horrible things. No, it's something that I kept with myself and something that I was dealing with internally, and only me and only I know what I went through. And then going a couple months forward, yes, I was still drinking, but because of the drinking, I rekindled with my friend who knew about it, and one day, we got invited to go play soccer and stuff like that, and I just something. This was a time where I was at peace with it, and I didn't have an encounter, but like I remember I was in my car, and I was so hurt, and I think that was the day where I let everything out. I cried and I I asked God, like, why am I feeling this way? Like, why did this happen to me and stuff like that? But at the end of the day, I know that it was for a reason and it was meant to happen. And that day, I decided to forgive them personally. I didn't say it into their face. Personally, I was like, you know what? The only way I can move on from this is if I personally forgive them right now. And I know the first time I said I forgave them, I didn't really forgive them. It was just me just saying it. It was like me saying it. But as time progressed and time moved forward, it started being true. I was being more happier because with deep within me, I was forgiving them truly. And now, obviously, it's almost like a year. I think a year or more has passed. Like I truly forgive them now. Like it's just something that happened, and obviously I can't go back in time, change everything, but it happened for a reason, and because of that, I'm closer to God than I ever was before. I stopped drinking, I stopped going, I'm stopped going out, and I've been just doing great, and I've been happier than ever. You know what I'm saying? So, but yes, but going back to when I met with my friend again, we played soccer, and I remember talking to him. I'm like, hey, do you want to go to the spot that, just to grab a couple drinks and just chill? And, you know, my friend said, yeah. And he was like, yeah, let's go. And yeah, and the only time I would ever consider drinking was a good thing was that night, because we drank and then we talked about everything. Because it was the big elephant in the room. It sucked because we were really close, man. We did everything together and stuff like that. So we got really close, and then just for that to happen, to stop talking abruptly, obviously, I didn't even tell him anything. I remember just cutting him off and completely. I was so petty though. I was unfollowing him on everything. I'm such a female. But check this out. But when that day I told him to let's go have a couple of drinks, I remember I fully forgave him. I don't know if I did. I think that was the night where I fully forgave him, because we both talked, and I remember I was like, no matter what he says, it's already done. I can't get mad. I can't, like, what's the point? So I heard him out, and we talked and we talked, and man, did we talk for a while about this. And I remember in the end, I'm like, I just want to tell you, I'm looking at you face to face right now, and I do miss you, bro. Like we were really close, but the one thing I do want to tell you is I forgive you. I forgive you for what you did. And I don't know how you want to take that, but just know that in my heart, I forgive you, and yeah, like it's okay. We both lived this life for the first time, and we're gonna make mistakes and stuff. Forgive you. And yeah, ever since that day, we've been working on it working on how it was, and now it's like we're stronger than it's like we never left, you know. So the power of forgiveness is something that's really really sweet in a sense, where it's like, wow, giving people another chance, or just giving people that feeling of like, I really did him wrong and he forgave me. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of people do tell me this, where it's like, dude, people fuck. Well, I'm cursed. Sorry, but people, well, people fucked you over. But if they could get away with that and you forgive them, then man, oh man, that just tells you that they're gonna, keep. But the way I think about it is, let them. If they want to ruin their own lives, if they want to ruin their relationship with me, or they want to ruin stuff, it's okay. I'm gonna forgive them. I have to forgive them, because how else can I move forward? How else can I grow as a person? So that's just the way I think about it. That's just the way I kind of have it in my head, the way I think. But if you have something that's kind of, different, then leave in the comments below. I would love to know about your intake on it. But yeah, so that I feel like that's like, I think, does that conclude? Yeah, I mean the story of of that. As for my ex, I do forgive her, obviously. Like, I wouldn't be here saying I forgave my friend if I didn't forgive my ex. But I do forgive her. Have I told her that in her face? No. But I think it's just something that has to happen naturally. Just like how me and my friend, like, we just got invited to play soccer, and I was like, you know what? Let's go for a drink and let's talk everything out. And then I said I forgave him. I haven't seen that my ex in such a long time, so if that's what I'm saying. You gotta trust into God's plan. If it's meant to happen, to be like, to tell her that I forgive her, then it's meant to happen. If not, then I just know that. I mean, I know that within me, internally in my heart, I forgive her. I'm not gonna sit here and hold hatred towards her. No, she's human. Yeah, like, like, I'm not gonna hold that against her. We're both living this life for the first time, and we're both gonna have struggles, and we're both gonna do stuff that we're gonna regret. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's really weird to like talk about it, because I'm such in a, like, I don't know, like, I don't feel these emotions anymore of like sadness and stuff like that when I think about it. So it's like, yeah, I could truly say that, yeah, I forgive her, and like, I'm not gonna hold anything against her. I'm not gonna be disrespectful either. If God, if I were to see her out on the street one day and I'm gonna be like, oh, hey, what's up? I'm not gonna be like, like, I guess it's not how the person I am. Other people obviously do the opposite, where it's like, they're my ex for a reason. If they did me wrong, F them. I'm not gonna talk to. How are you gonna move forward in life? So I think forgiveness is a key role here, and also, just like I said, trusting into God's plan, because of that, because of not giving up in God and not losing faith in Him throughout this whole. Even though, yes, I was drinking and stuff like that, but throughout the process, I still believed in Him and was like, I seeked for help for I'm here now. I'm here in a better state of mind. I'm healthy. I'm going to the gym regularly. Like, I feel great about me, and I haven't felt this great about me in such a long time. So trust into God's plan. Learn how to forgive the people that have hurt you, for you can move on forward in life, and don't let the temptation win. That's going to conclude today's episode of Sit Down with Alex. I really hope you guys do enjoy it. Thank you guys for always kind of like, sitting down with me and, just chatting. If you guys do have stories of your own, that about forgiveness or about trusting into God's plan and stuff like that, leave in the comments, man. I would love to really read about it, and maybe, if you guys don't mind, if you guys do leave a comment, I could definitely want to read it out in the read out here in the podcast and just like kind of like talk. Maybe if I shared some experiences the same as yours and stuff like that, so it'll be kind of cool. But yeah, and also leave in the comment below about your take on today's episode. What do you take from it? Are you gonna start forgiving? Are you gonna start trusting into God's plan more? What's your way of not falling for temptation and stuff like that? So, you know, it's cool. It's cool. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. I know it's a late one, but I had to edit some photos. But thank you guys for watching. I love you. Take care. Stay blessed and stay cute. I see you guys next Monday.